Hey everyone, Alex Angulo here. Welcome back to a new episode of Wide Right. No, this is not a new episode of Wide Right. This is just the platter, as I call it, because there were three games. If there's any game that's after, there, any game that's after, uh, what is it? Any game that comes after I finish recording and I do Overflow and I don't talk about it, all that stuff, then it's not gonna be easy for me to cover it because I don't want to leave any game untouched. So we got Miami and LSU and North Carolina, A&T, and East Carolina on Sunday, September 2nd, and then we had Virginia Tech and Florida State on the Monday on Monday. So LSU beat Miami 33-17 by 16 points. I was going to say 6 points. If it were 6 points, then LSU would have won 33-27, but Okay. So first quarter ended with LSU on top 10-3. Then LSU shut down Miami a combined 23 to nothing, I believe. Yes. And then Miami reeled off 14 straight points, but it wasn't enough. Okay, so Malik Rozier went 15 for 35 with 279 yards at 7.4 yards in average, one touchdown and two interceptions, whereas Joe Burrow went 11 for 24 for 140 yards, 5.8 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions either. So Malik Rozier went 42.8%, had a 42.8%, had a 42.8% completion percentage, or 43% if you want to get more precise. Whereas Joe Burrow went 45.8 or 46. And then the top rusher from each side, DJ Dallas from Miami, had 8 carries for 38 yards, and his longest was 9, whereas Nick Brochette for LSU had 22 carries for 125 yards with 2 touchdowns. And then, so that is that. Yeah. All right then. So let's also talk about North Carolina A&T, which I believe is a historically black university. And, well, let me see. So yeah, because North Carolina A&T defeated East Carolina, and they play in the MEAC. Yes, they are historically black college. All right, so North Carolina used 2 quarterbacks, and both did exceptionally well, finishing with a roughly 59% passing percentage. So North Carolina led 7-3. East Carolina scored 14 points in the second quarter, whereas North Carolina only scored just a touchdown. Everyone thinking North Carolina A&T is gonna lose. Then they shut out East. Then they were shut out, but then, they were shut out in the third quarter, but they held East Carolina to a field goal and then come back strong with 2 touchdowns, and that's it. So Lamar Raynard went 10 for 20, 94 yards, little over 4.5 yards at 4.7 yards a carry, with 1 touchdown. Khalil Carter went 7 for 9, 93 yards, 10.3 yards per throw for 2 touchdowns. Both had no interceptions. So Both went 17 for 29. As mentioned, the 58.6% completion percentage, which is 59 if you round it up. Lamar Rayner was 50-50 because, well, he went 10 for 20. And Khalil Carter went 77.7%. Okay? Okay. Whereas Ray Herring went 37 for 65 for a 56.9 percentage. For 57% completion percentage, and that's 56.9. Kingsley Effendi was perfect, but he only threw one throw for 5 yards. And Herring had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, North Carolina A&T had Markel Cartwright had 18 carries for 68 yards, 3.8 yards a carry. And East Carolina had Anthony Scott, 12 carries, 34 yards, 2.8 yards a carry. And holy Toledo, isn't that something? Whereas the last one, Virginia Tech and Florida State, I got to tell you, man, that game was a little bit controversial from the Florida State side because Florida State's head coach, I believe Willie Taggart, Willie Taggart says he believes Virginia Tech faked injuries to slow down the game. And Justin Fuente, the current head coach of Virginia Tech, claims that there was humidity. But what happened? We'll never know. It could have been a shutout had FSU not gotten, too crazy. So Josh Jackson went 16 for 26 for a 61.5% completion percentage. 207 yards, 8 yards exactly with 2 touchdowns. Whereas DeAndre Francois went 22 for 35 for a 62.8 or roughly 63% completion percentage. 233 yards, 6.7 yards to throw, but 3 interceptions. And of course, Virginia Tech led 17-3 at the half because they scored 10 points in the first quarter, 7 in the second. FSU got their only points in the third quarter. Nobody scored in not in the third quarter, second quarter. Nobody scored in the third, and Virginia Tech added a touchdown for good measure. So for Virginia Tech, Deshaun McCleave had 13 carries, 77 yards for 5.9 yards, nearly 6. And for Florida State, Cam Akers had 14 carries for 82 yards and 5.9 yards a carry. Now, who is our worst performance? Who's our worst rusher? Well, it's DeAndre Francois, who had 7 yards for negative 28 yards, which is negative 4 yards. He only had one. He only had one, And that is it. Okay, so the Friday night game is TCU versus SMU. And if you're not aware of SMU, go watch Pony Excess, the 30 for 30. And that is that. I will see you guys next time for the Wide Right podcast, where I will cover everything and be ready for Overflow. Bye-bye.